This is Boxing Tickets NI in association with That Prize Guy. I'm delighted to be joined with the domestic matchmaking king, Jay Byrne. How are you?
Hey, Steve, how's things, pal?
Things are fantastic. I'm going to hit you with a trivial question here before we start. No cheating on your computer there. So, if all everything comes to fruition, obviously as it is, with five domestic fights on October 10th, from starting obviously in November 2023 to obviously conclusion of October 10th. How many domestic fights will you have made?
Oh, Jesus.
Happy Tuesday.
Don't know.
16.
16, there you
And that's
go.
over the course of six cards. So obviously you build in fights and stuff like that as well. Obviously, some of them maybe people wouldn't have classified as like a 50-50 domestic fight, but obviously you'd Alan White and three ones very early on, obviously helping people transition across. But 16 domestic fights and in six shows over the inside 2 years. That's
Done
why
more than six shows.
I've been over the domestic fights. I've been over six shows of 10.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, I get
so
you.
16 domestic fights over six shows over the course of 10 promoted shows in less than two
Yeah,
years. That's some statistic.
yeah, well, we did say on the first press conference that, we needed to give boxers a platform to, achieve their goals and their targets, and you can't win a domestic title without fighting in a domestic fight. And the domestic titles, in my opinion, have been starved in this country for a long time. There wasn't much activity around domestic titles. I think there was only four or five, if even Irish titles, fought for in like the previous 7 or 8 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get the activity moving on the in the south, especially, but I wanted to get activity moving with the BUI belts, and I think we've seen that. I think we've a lot more new champions in the country, and the way I look at it, Sen Kelly is a prime example. You know, when he came to us, he was kind of contemplating would he keep continuing boxing. He was kind of getting fed up of it, and we just said to him, "Look, I just keep your head down, stay focused." And he then got a Celtic title. He got an Irish title fight. He won that, and then he got an Irish title defense. He won that, and now he's, in my opinion, he's done all he wants to do and all he needs to do in Ireland, and now he's stepping up to international level. He has to go now and show that he's better than domestic level, by winning against Ben Marksby. But that's the blueprint of what fighters should be wanting to do. Like mop up in Ireland first. There's no point skipping Ireland because you don't know your level. So you need to know your level before you move. There's too many people that fancy themselves and they pad their records up and then they go across the water and they get battered and that's the end of it. They've never picked that up. And I don't care what anyone says. When you go into sport, when you take up a sport as a kid, you don't take it up for money. Money helps, don't get me wrong. And if you're extremely good at it, you'll make a lot of money. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting down and you're talking to your kids and you're talking to your grandkids in years to come, you don't sit down and say, I remember I fought X and I got paid 10 grand, or I fought such and such and I got paid 20 grand, because that doesn't last long. That money doesn't last long at all. I'm sure we've all had nice money in our day, over the days, over the years, and you know how quick 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand can go. But when you're sitting there with your grandkids, you're sitting there with friends sitting at a bar when you're in your 50s or your 40s or whatever like that, and you're able to say, geez, I remember I fought such and such and I won this belt, or I remember defending this belt against such and such, and things like that. And you have a few belts there sitting on your mantelpiece or sitting in your bar at home or sitting on a shelf at home. And the whole, I see Luke Keeler put up something there last week about his boxing career picture of a cabinet with all his belts in, and he had the Celtic title and he had the Irish title and he had the WBA European title. I think he might have two of them. You know what I mean? That's your career. But sitting in 10, 20 years time and going, I remember I fought Joe Bloggs and I got 20 grand. And what did you do with that 20 grand? Oh, I wasn't working at the time, and I was in camp for 6 weeks and 10 weeks, and by the time I paid for my shorts, and by the time I paid for this, and then I went for a holiday, blah blah blah, and your 10 grands, your 15s, your 30 grands are gone. Simple. You know what I mean? So that kind of mentality is ridiculous. You're not in the sport for the right reason. If you're in the sport for money, get out of it, unless you're obviously at the top of the level, because at the top level, even the likes of Mick Conlan and that, what's his aspirations? It's not money, it's a world title. He wants to achieve a goal. And sometimes a Celtic title is someone's world title, and an Irish title can be another person's world title. That's their equivalent to achieving the most they could win would be a Celtic title or an Irish title and things like that. So yeah, look, I think we're doing a great job. I'm very, very happy with how things have gone with everybody a part of the team. Obviously, we've signed people over the years and we've let them go, and some people haven't worked out, and the whole lot has never been from our side. We're straight to the point from day one, and we haven't changed, and we won't change. It's take it or leave it. This is the platform we'll give you. This is what we will give you. This is what we expect of you. And if you do your end, we'll definitely do our end. And I feel we've done that. And I listened to all your interviews with all our fighters and other fighters and any of our fighters that are ever interviewed, and it does come up about their career. A lot of them, if not all of them, have said anything I've ever promised them, anything I've ever said to them from day one has come true and more. And that's my job, and that's my job as the manager. And I have my team around me for the events and things and make the events happen. And look, we're very happy with what we're doing, and we're very happy with the stable of fighters we have at the minute. It's going really, really well at the minute.
Yeah, like obviously, I know that anybody in the WhatsApp group will know that me and you obviously nearly fight the bit out and sort of a bit of banter every day about things, but you are doing a great job for any fighter you've had, whether they've been in one of your shows or whether they've been in all 10 of your shows. Even the away opponents you're sort of bringing in, you're giving them repeat work, and that's you're setting the blueprints. I know that even you've got even bigger goals and even bigger aspirations of where you want to take things and venues and things like that you want to do, but at least you can be happy, come November of this year, I'll be 10 shows completed. You'll have been in the warehouse quite a few times, National Stadium a couple of times, up in Belfast as well. So like you're laying your plants in different parts of the country now, and helping fighters get the activity that they want.
Yeah, well, that's it. And like we did say from day one, look, it's very hard in Ireland in the south to get venues and things like that as well. It's not for the want of trying. Look, I want to bring Paul Loonam back down to the Midlands, down towards Offaly, Tullamore direction. That's something I want to do. I did look at and I was really looking deep into bringing a show down to Wexford. I was hoping to do a show in Wexford. Again, venues are just hard to come by. So obviously Belfast, we done the Devonish in Belfast, and we're in around Dublin, but it has to make sense logistically. I'm not the kind of person that's going to blow thousands and thousands of my own personal money into a boxing event, because it won't benefit us. It'll benefit just the fighters. And don't get me wrong, I've no problem investing here and there into the fighters. But again, I'm not going to just go on overpay stupidly just to get a venue, just to do a show, like an ego thing. It's just not. It doesn't make sense, because the more money I blow, the less money I can invest. And as things are standing, as we're doing things, I know we're doing things right. I know financially the way we do things works. It's not ideal at times. Certain things I do look at sometimes myself, but it's a bit expensive, that is, or it could be an opponent, for instance. It was an opponent on the last show, and in my opinion, it was too expensive. But we were limited in what we could get. We couldn't really get a cheaper opponent, and we had to overpay on it. And I had to go to a fighter and say, look, this is the cost of the opponent, and it was really expensive. And I was just going, you get a title opponent for cheaper. Obviously, if there wasn't a title opponent available and all, and there is times where I look at it and go, fucking hell, man, that is expensive. And being the fighter, and Butch always says to me and all, will you stop thinking like a fighter? Start thinking like a promoter. But that's why I'm in the game. I'm in it to keep thinking like a fighter. And that's why I pay all the extra for the likes of production, screens. Like, no one has ever done a national stadium show the way I've done my national stadium show in April. There's no one, go back through the years, no one had the amount of lighting and screens, etc., and production that we had. And we're probably one of the only ones that wouldn't have had any financial backing going into these shows. You know what I mean? But we do it because I was the fighter, and I don't want to walk out into an empty arena and a dull, dim kind of echoey atmosphere in the stadium with no lighting or staging or anything like that, and not a proper walkout So I made sure we paid the extra for that. And anyone that knows boxing and anyone that knows running events knows the likes of them screens and lighting and everything that goes with it, they're not cheap. You know what I mean? But again, we could have just pulled off on that and said, you know what, no, I just have them walk up through the arena into the ring and have a couple of flashing lights or whatever like that and save ourselves, 5 zeros. But why would you? It's pointless. It doesn't make sense. It's about building to a platform, and then we've got our TV deal now over the line. So I have obligations now to make sure that the TV deals stay on board and they're very happy and they want to grow with us. And the more we grow on their platform, financial gains will come, I'm sure, down the road as well. So it's just about doing things right from the start, from the day you sign a fighter to the end of their career, in my opinion. I want to make sure they're all looked after, they all get a good platform to box on, and we do our side of things the way we've told them, because they're giving us the responsibility to manage them, and that's important.
Is 2025 more, obviously, because we know there's less shows this year, is it more quality over quantity? Obviously, but you look at it by, you had 4 domestic fights on April 12th. You've done your first show in the Devonish, and obviously now five more domestic fights on October 10th. So this is the quality over the quantity. Like, yeah, I'm trying to think of it saying that right.
Yeah,
So but it shows probably how far you've got in terms of the stage where a lot of these fighters are ready for domestic fights. They're ready to push on to the next level.
But that's what we had to do. Like, they weren't ready last year, so we had to get them ready, and we had to prime them and bring them to that stage. But we've also had other events this year that we had lads on, and then there was obviously the GBM card that was supposed to happen, that we were supposed to have a few lads on that. So that was another one that we didn't really want to clash with, because we felt we had a few of our lads on that. And then obviously we have mixed card, and we have the 3 lads on that. So, like, them 3 lads were definitely on this card in October. And 1 or 2 of them still in May, because they are itching to go back to the stadium, which is great, and it shows how much they enjoyed April's card, because they're boxing in the 3 arena, but they're all asking, can they still be on October? You know what I mean? Now, all 3 won't be on October, but that's what they're asking. If we were doing small hall dingy shows, or a dingy show in the stadium with no real production and no real crowd, and not building a good card and just doing it for the sake of it, they wouldn't really be bothered. But they're all itching to get on the card. So this year, yeah, it is more quality over quantity, but also we had the warehouse had an issue earlier in the year, and it's kind of near enough resolved now, and we have another generation of fighters now that we really need to start going with. And I know we are going to start signing some more. I've kind of held back on signing a lot, and there's been a lot onto me this year that I've kind of just put them on the back burner, because I knew this year we were going, as you said, quality over quantity. We weren't going to have as many shows, and I didn't want to be signing a load of fighters and not being able to do anything for them. Because again, my job once I sign a fighter is activity and ensuring that I'm managing them properly, that they're going to fight. Boxers sign for you to fight. They don't just sit around waiting and not know when they're going to fight. So I would think we possibly have a show in December, last week of November, first week in December, potentially have a show there. I won't release a date or anything yet, because it's not locked in yet. And then I believe the warehouse will be back in full flow kind of from January. And then next year we may do a few in the warehouse again. And obviously we also have, I think, 3 national stadium dates booked in for next year as well. And I really enjoyed the logistics around Belfast in regards to people and working up there with the venue, and the people up there, I feel they're really, really good people to work with. So I'd like to keep ourselves up there, just not full time, because there's Belfast people up there doing their shows, and I'm happy to support them and make sure their shows are successful. So, but we may do 1 to 2 shows in Belfast next year in the Devonish again, just to keep our Belfast lads happy and bring them back home again as well.
Did you find it, obviously, just read, don't want to go too far into obviously too far back, the definition, things like that, but just a quick recap, because the last thing, Jay, that we want is an hour and a half interview on a Tuesday. And I'm sure anybody listening doesn't want to be listening for an hour and a half. I'd have to put in the chapters and stuff as well. But like, did you find Belfast different to what you've done previously? You know, probably in a similar scale to what the warehouse was. Like, what's the difference compared to the two venues and that?
They're very, very nice. Not saying the people in Dublin are nice, but they're just really, really laid back, nice people to deal with. Um, yeah, it was. I remember going up to the weigh-in. We done the weigh-in. The weigh-in was over and done with in like 40 minutes. It's never like that in Dublin. You know, the ring and that was set up. And like usually, I'm setting the ring up with the lads. I'm putting the rope covers. I'm putting everything on. The guy up there, Jim Falloon, supplied the ring. He done all of that stuff for us. The the venue were wheeling out all the chairs. We just had to place them where we wanted. They were going to place them, but we wanted to do our own thing. They carried in the barriers. Usually in Dublin, I'm running around grabbing the barriers from outside, carrying them in. I'm hiring chairs. I'm carrying them in around the place, and I'm getting all the chairs from upstairs down to downstairs, and I'm laying the place out. So usually the Thursday after the weigh-in, in the evening after I finish work, I go to the warehouse and I have to build the arena. So I didn't have to do any of that in Belfast. Like we went up, we weighed in, and after the weigh-in, sure, me and Louise were able to go. We went off out shopping and things, and fucking down to town, and went for dinner, and we were back chilling out in our hotel early that night, that evening, and sorting out all the financials and things like that. And we had it all done. And usually I'm in the warehouse till about 10 o'clock, 10:30. Then I get home and I have to do all up the envelopes and do everything up and do all the spreadsheets and do all that stuff. And I'm going to like 1 or 2 in the morning, and it can just it's just heavy work, you know what I mean? Whereas up there, I felt it was a lot easier work. Financially, there was no real difference in the warehouse, to be honest with you. It wasn't a financial gain and show. It was very like the warehouse. It was, when you look at the costs and you look at things like that, it wasn't much in the difference, to be really honest. So people say like, "Oh, I'll go to Belfast, it's much cheaper." It's not.
Would you maybe found like if you compared your first Devonish show to your first warehouse show, like
Ah,
I guess sometimes people need a few shows. So like if you're like 2 or 3 shows into the Devonish, there obviously is a bigger reaction because people know who more so who JB promotions are rather than I done shows in Dublin, this, that, or the other. So they actually then come out and support more.
there
Yeah, I think we're just
you froze there.
I think we're just getting a bit of lag here. I was saying, do you think obviously you'd have a difference, like if you're 2 or 3 shows into the definition, people in the local area were probably knowing more so who JB promotions were. They obviously come out more in support because they know that you're there doing regular shows. You find much of an upturn.
Yeah, I just kind of felt that again. We don't do anything massively better than other promoters. So I think we do things a little bit different. Um, we got some good feedback from the show up there, and I do believe that we will. I do believe that if we were to go back up, we would get the same support and possibly more. We had some issues on the last show. Like we had Owen O'Neill booked on the show, and Owen brings a nice crowd, and then obviously he got that fight in Canada, so we pulled off the show, and that was a bit of a kick for us. And then there was Jerry Hughes got an injury, and he came off the show, and there was someone else, I can't remember who. Oh, we lost the main event. We had Richie O'Leary to fight John Boyd, and Richie O'Leary pulled out. So like that was all within like 2 weeks of the show, 3 weeks of the show. So it wasn't ideal for us, especially our first show. You're kind of hoping to go in with a plan, and the plan pays off, and it's a successful night. But that was there were 3 big things for us. Going in as a first time promoter into a small venue like that. You're expecting them kind of Owen and Jer. As I said, they're just supposed to bring a nice crowd, and then you wanted John in his 50-50. John said his tickets dropped when they found out he wasn't fighting for in the domestic. So yeah, that was kind of just little downturns of which is part and parcel of promoting.
Obviously, just before we move on, obviously to October 10th, which is obviously well publicised now. Obviously, you had 2 fighters on Mark and Lob show. I'm trying to think. 2 Saturdays ago, I've lost total conception there. But obviously, Bayo and Hijjah, obviously, with 2 really convincing performances. Like the 2 of them just seem to be adapting very, very quickly to life as a professional, which sometimes, as you well know, Jay, the first year can be a struggle. Just seems to be that they just seem to be keep getting better with each fight that comes.
2 kids with not much of an amateur background. an amateur pedigree. Very, very good. I thought Hijjah was outstanding. I thought Bayo had his best performance of his career. Very, very impressed with the two of them. I really was. Was really, really impressed.
Yeah,
it was a good show. It was a good show, and it was a great platform for the lads, and very, very, very easy to work with Mark as well, and I look forward to working with him in the future.
Yeah, and obviously they get some obviously coverage on TG Forum
Yeah.
or TG Cahar as it's called as well. Obviously prior to October 10th, before we come on to that, you've obviously as you sort of touched on there, you've three obviously the lads in the stable on Mick Conlan undercard against Jack Bates, and obviously Paul Loonam obviously back in action, Glenn rematch and Lopez and Sen and Kelly obviously and Ben Marksby. Like another proud moment for you, Jay, obviously to be part of a Wasserman card. Obviously, having your fighters in the Mick Conlan undercard, which is going to give them massive exposure. I think his first fight in Wasserman done 3 million, three or 3.5 million views. So it's massive exposure for not only JB Promotions but also for your fighters also.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Wasserman actually, we came together. We had a conversation at the very start before the show was ever announced or anything like that. We had a good conversation, and they're very, very professional guys, like really professional guys. I actually said after my last ever fight that Wasserman were the best I'd ever worked under in regards to fighting, and I can see why I felt that at the time, which was 2 years ago. Because I've dealt with them on this show, as I said before, the card was announced. I just got chatting to them about Dublin, the logistics, how things work. The likes of the service people, the ambulances, DJs, all of that stuff, hotels, transport companies, everything like that. And I think that's a sign of a good business when they look at who's doing what in a country, in an industry that they're coming into. And they reached out and we had the conversation. I think Mick recommended they came to me and had a chat with me. And, I've helped them with a lot of bookings and getting things sorted. And, because a lot of times what happens is the likes of the big companies come to Ireland and, people see money signs and just kick them under down, you know what I mean? And, you don't want to see that. And I don't want to see that for any promoter coming in, how big or how small they are. And I was able to help them with that. And then, myself and Sam, who is the head matchmaker over there, we had reached out and discussed potential sending Ben versus Ben Marksby at the end of last year, start of this year, and we said we'd revisit it, and this was the perfect time to revisit it because it was obviously in Ireland and everything like that. So we made that fight straight away, and then we discussed previous fights. The James Freeman and Glenn Byrne fight was made for Galway. Okay, wasn't too easy to make, but we got it made for Galway. In my opinion, James didn't want to fight in Galway. He wasn't advertising an awful lot. He wasn't saying an awful lot about it. But the fight on paper was happening. We then, when the fight got cancelled, I suggested that we move the fight to the October 10th card. And he wasn't happy with that. He wanted it on a different promotion. He wasn't happy to have the fight on my promotion. Okay, no problem. So I then got it approved, thinking that because he wanted a different promotion and he wanted the fight, so he said, and it was going to happen in Galway on the GBN card, that he would be only delighted to fight on Mick Conlan's undercard in the Triller Arena. So I got the fight approved, I got it agreed with Wasserman, and all of a sudden then he didn't want it in that card. He was going away or something like that. Let me tell you, if I was going away and someone asked me to fight for a title in a very winnable fight against a guy that had no amateur pedigree, that I was previously supposed to fight in the Tree Arena on the undercard of Mick Conlan, the holiday's gone. I am going to the Tree Arena to showcase my skills in a winnable fight against a 50-50 opponent on paper on one of the biggest platforms in boxing in Ireland. So he didn't want that fight. I'm going to put it on record now. And I know Ian commented, Ian are personal friends, and we do have these little back and forths. We had it with Dave, Ryan and Tony, and then we had it with Senan and Dave, and where we've had a little bit of back and forth. Now, not arguments, but just he'll comment, he'll fight his lads' corners. But Ian put up on it saying, because I said very hard to make or something like that, and he said it wasn't that hard or something. Ian knows there was stupid excuses about around that fight not happening, and that's fine. But if you don't want to fight, just say you don't want to fight. Don't do what he done last year and run ever since. It's 15, 16 months since he done what he done last year by going to the ring and disrespecting Glenn and calling out. But anyway, as I'm from today, that's put to bed. Glenn Byrne will never step in the ring with James Freeman, ever, because we will not waste time and a camp on him ever again. In my opinion, he's a pretender. He's not a real boxer. And that's my thing. In regards Glenn and Charlie Lopez, Glenn just said to me, Jay, I want to fight for the title. I personally, I'll be straightly honest with you, I'm Glenn's manager. What's an easier fight, James Freeman or Charlie Lopez? In my opinion, James Freeman. I think Glenn knocks James Freeman out. I think he knocks him out inside 3 rounds. That's it. That's my opinion on the fight. That may not happen. Other people have other opinions, but I would be very, very confident to put money on Glenn to stop James Freeman inside 3 rounds. On paper, it's a 50-50. Both of them came from a footballing background. Both of them have been built up similar. Glenn is probably a little bit more, obviously, after having the Charlie Lopez fight, but I think he knocks him out in 3-4 rounds. So I wanted to go down that route. Domestic fight also as well. It's a bit more hype, a bit more noise around it in Ireland. Well, when the fight couldn't come off, Glenn just said to me, please just make the Lopez rematch. I'll beat him. And I said, look, let me have a look. He says, no, just make the fucking Lopez rematch with it. And I says, all right. I said, it's a tough fight. I said, you know what you're up against. I said, you got 8 rounds of a man just coming forward, swinging bombs, and that's it. And he says, I'll beat him. I promise you. He said, just make the fight. And we had to go to Charlie Lopez, and it wasn't easy for that because he seen himself in the lights on the zone, and his manager wanted more money than the last time, and it ended up costing more to get him here and the whole lot. But one thing that stood out for me for Glenn on that was, I went back to Glenn and said, look at this Lopez lad is sticking his heels down. I said, he's fucking looking for stupid money. I said, he's looking for more money. And he said, what's the difference? I said, he's looking for $1,000 to $1,500 more. He said, take it out of my purse. I said, you're not paying him and taking less to fight him. He says, I want to fight, take the money out of my purse. And that to me showed he has the bit between his teeth and he knows what he has to do to beat him. And I think that mentality is just going to stand to him. He's willing to take a lot less on his purse just to get that man to the ring and give that man a lot more money to come here to fix the wrongs from April. That to me, that's the mentality of Glenn. And then you have the mentality of Freeman. And that's what I'm saying. That's a difference in them fighters. I think Glenn beats Charlie Lopez now. I think we've been doing countless hours in the gym on where he went wrong. He's actually flying over to Pete Taylor, reached out to Pete there last week, the week before, and asked Pete, was there any chance he could do a bit with Glenn? There's just certain aspects tactically that I personally think Pete is one of the best coaches in the world, never mind the country. And there's certain tactical work that I think Pete will be far better than I would be for this fight. And I've asked Pete, could he do it? And Glenn, he agreed. And Glenn is flying over to Amsterdam to Pete on Friday. He's actually had Oasis tickets and all. He's missing his Oasis concert and all. He just wants to go over to Pete and work with Pete for the 3 or 4 days before the fight. So I think that the kid is just showing exactly what he is and his mentality to the game and his commitment to the sport. So I think hats off to him.
Another one, obviously, it's showing, probably in very, very hard times. And obviously, I know I've done an interview with him the other day. Paul Loonam, obviously, buried his father a month ago. Obviously, tried after a tragic accident. Like, it would have been excusable for Paul to take a break. But obviously, I know I spoke to him at Gerwood for Mark and Lop's show, and he said, well, what's the point in taking 6 months out? Because the first fight back and every fight ever since is always going to be tough. So it shows the mentality. It shows character. Obviously, it takes a serious set of gonads to continue on when you're probably at your lowest. But I think it's probably shown more so into the sort of person Paul is away from boxing, that he's just a proud man and he wants to keep going and keep fighting for his dreams.
Do you know what it is as well, Steve? Like, I had spoke to Paul. I spoke to him daily, kind of in around the time, just to offer him support and help and forget boxing. Nothing to do with boxing. Just to be there for him and to help him. And the conversation had to come back up because, as he said to you in the interview, the last conversation he had with his dad was telling him that he was going to box in the Triller arena. because that had been agreed and we were just finalising it basically. And I said to him, "No, you're on the card, all right." I said, "It's just we just to finalise opponents and things like that." And I reached out to Niall. I got Niall's opinion, and I spoke to his brother Kevin, and I had his opinion, and we all agreed. And I just said, "Look, it's no one's decision, bar Paul's. We can't tell him he's not fighting because he could hold it against us in 6 months, 9 months. He could go into a rut because at the end of the day, he had the dream of fighting in the Tree Arena, and then he had obviously his dad. And sadly, because of the tragic circumstances, he lost his dad. But he didn't have to lose that dream. But to lose both of them and have nothing because he has a family and he's a lovely child and that there, but to lose them, the biggest thing, his father, but then to lose that little dream that he had of fighting in the Tree Arena, and yeah, I'm sure he would have got it again, but there's never a guarantee of that because you just don't know what can happen next. So I just chatted to him and just said to him, "Look, it's all on you. It's your decision." I said, "No one else's decision." I said, "Whatever decision you make, we will support." I said, "But one thing I can guarantee you is the fight you'll have will be just a run-of-the-mill fight. There is no stepping up. There's no awkward opponents coming in." I said, "I'd like to get someone that you may have boxed previously, or," I said, "someone that just comes to do a job." I said, "There's no risk and reward." Because I said, and I said to him as well, I said, "The first fight back, no matter whether it's October, whether it's September in the Tree Arena, whether it's after Christmas," I said, "the first fight back is going to be the first fight without your dad." I said, "You're going to have that anyway." So I said, it's just down to you and what you want. And Paul kind of agreed, and he went off, and he was kind of telling me that he wanted to fight all along, but I was never kind of answering it when he said it. I was just kind of saying, in my head, I want to fight, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to speak to his family and things like that as well. And I was just kind of letting him make his decision himself and supporting him in every way possible. But I've been talking to him daily, and I believe his camp is going phenomenal. I believe his sparring is outstanding. He's at the best he's been in his career. I actually got a text from Niall, just Niall to send me updates. I speak to his brother, but they've all been, ranting about how good he's been. And, Niall said to me, this is the best he's ever been since he went pro. So I think this could be just a blessing in disguise. It's keeping his mind off some things, I'm sure, in the background. He's doing a lot more training at home. So, I know the lads from Unit 3 are travelling down, and he's a lot heavier involved with his brother training when he was an amateur. So, yeah, look, I think this has come at a great time for Paul. It's not drowning out everything that's happened or anything at all. I'm not saying that, but I just think it's given him something to focus on in the straight aftermath of what happened, and he's got another 3 to 4 weeks of that. And then when the fight's over, I'm sure he'd have a bit of time off. Now, knowing Paul, he'd want to fight in October, but I just think it's the right time. I think it's a perfect time for him, to be honest with you. It's a fight that isn't going to cause him massive danger. Now, in saying that, Jake Pollard had Jack O'Neill on the floor a couple of weeks ago, so he ain't no slouch when he wants to be. So, he has to be tuned in. But it's Paul. He does things right. He never skips any corners.
Yeah, definitely. As I think I said to him last week as well, is, in time he'll probably realise it, and he believes as well that obviously things in life happen for a reason, but what's meant to be, what's meant to be. But it might add an extra 10 or 20% to his game, knowing now that, he's still been able to continue to chase his dreams. Obviously, unfortunately, his father's no longer here, but it'll add something to him. It'll add a different hunger. Not that he wasn't hungry before, but it'll add something deeper inside him where he goes, I have to continue to keep fighting for my dreams every day, because you just don't know when, whether it could be injury or fall out of love and things like that in the sport. It can just change very quickly.
There is some people there's some people in the country that boxing is their job, Steve. Although they're not making massive money, but they're doing their apprenticeship now as such, and they're learning and they're getting small money and they're just chipping away and all that. But like, Paul didn't come into professional boxing to be an Irish champion. No disrespect to Irish championships, but he came in to be a world champion, and that's not stopping. So if he was working as a carpenter and he lost his father or he lost a family member, he can't just jack up his job for 6 months. And that's the same with anybody. So I understand if it's a hobby, and I understand like in my career where it was just a hobby. I had a job and that was just my hobby on the side. If that happened to me, I might just go, you know what, I'll give it 6 months or so, whatever. I should focus on work and the family and whatever else, and that's grand. But this is Paul's work. He has a young family, and his dream is world title. He can't just really, in theory, just take 6 months out and set himself back, because at the end of the day, in them 6 months, he has no earnings. Whereas he has some income coming for this fight, and then he'll obviously have sponsors and things like that. So that's another way of looking at it as well, you know. Like he has shown that, you know, how professional he is. It's like, well, that's my job. This is my work. I can't put that on hold either. I have to focus and I have to put my head down. And I just think it shows the strength of his character that he's able to do a camp. And as the lads have said, he's been the best he's been as a pro. So I just think it shows the credit of the guy. I think he's an unbelievable character. He's an unbelievable person, you know.
Welcome back. If you're not a newbie, if it's not your first time watching an interview between me and Jay, you know it's never going to be concluded within a 40-minute scheduled Zoom interview. So we're back with part two. Thanks if you're still with us at this stage. Jay, we've obviously left the best to last. We started it off, we sort of teasing October 10th, but New Dawn, October 10th. It's probably fair to say best card you've done yet.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to think so. It hasn't happened yet, but I'd like to think it will be the best card once all the fights stay strong and none of them fall out.
Yeah, touch wood. Obviously, fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong. But like 5 domestic fights, 3 debutants, fighters continuing obviously on their journey towards titles, new signings. Obviously, Spike O'Sullivan returning back to the National Stadium, I think, for the first time in 13 years. The card has everything on it.
Yeah, the name is a new dawn because it's our first show as part of our broadcast deal with Triller. There's some new debutants on it. There was some careers kind of starting fresh again. We'd like to Keane Doyle. Obviously, he was very unlucky. He got a broken hand the other day, sparring, so he's actually off the card. There's 1 or 2 others that were supposed to be coming back that may still be. Obviously, Spike coming back to the stadium. You know, it's, in my opinion, it's a new dawn for Irish boxing. It's the first time in the South that a promotional outfit has got a TV deal as such.
I'm trying to think, like, when has there ever been 5 domestic 50-50 fights on the one card?
Yeah, and I think it will be very hard to pick the 5 winners. I don't think anybody will get that. I'm actually going to do a competition on the page to see who can pick the 5 winners, if anyone can pick the 5 winners.
So is it just 5 winners or 5 methods of victory as well to make it even tougher? It's probably tough enough.
I think that'd be impossible.
You never know.
The 5 winners are hard.
The impossible is always there for someone. So someone wants the challenge. There might be a wee extra prize included then if they pick the method of victory as well.
Yeah, we might give them a weekend away with you.
I think they'll be finished after 10 minutes.
The bogey prize.
But like probably, I'm just looking. Obviously, I've obviously sent you something this morning there, with obviously all of the fights on it so far. But like, to look at it, Paul Ryan, obviously his first fight under you. His first fight's actually going to be in Dublin. Fighting obviously another really good amateur standout in Edward Donovan. You've Kevin Cronin in his 5th domestic fight against Cathal Crowley. Obviously called for the fight and thought the fight was made last year. Daniel Sullivan, like he's becoming like one of the new domestic kings. Obviously, aside from Senan and Rudy Farrell, obviously went on the Irish honours. He's a 2-time Celtic champion. Tony McGlennon, David Ryan running the back, and Sean Murray and Peter Carr and what will be a war. Like, sorry to anybody else. Obviously, it's on the card there, sort of, but they're the standouts of the card there so far.
Yeah, no, I think they're all great fights, and testament to the lads for wanting these fights. We had Richie O'Leary against John Boyd as well, but that couldn't happen. John had his missus went and booked a holiday without him knowing, and it was bang in the middle of camp, so it couldn't happen. We've looked around for a suitable opponent for Richie, and it doesn't look like we're going to get one. So we may have to just put Richie back, and maybe the winner of Peter Carr and Sean Murray can fight Richie for the Celtic title next. That's kind of probably what I'll be looking at now, something like that. There will be updates to them fights. I believe some of them fights are title worthy. However, there's conversations that have to be had with the parties, and there's conversations that have to be had with the BUI, but the fights are happening. So it's just a matter now of seeing, can we promote some of them fights up to titles? And that'll be something down the road that we will hope to do.
I'm guessing that obviously because there's other fights in the pipeline at the moment, Kevin Cronin and Dean Walsh are both fighting on the September card.
Yeah, exactly. Like Dean and Daniel could fight for the Celtic title. However, if Dean was to come through as 8-round fight in September, potentially that fight could become an Irish title fight if the BUI are open and approved to it. Kevin Cronin needs a win to be eligible for any title. Both lads then, if Kevin was to win, will be eligible for Celtic and Irish titles. So again, if the BUI are open to that and there's nothing in the way, that's a fight that potentially could be upgraded to a title fight. So yeah, there's title fights there that can be made. It's just, again, at the minute, it's about fight. They're fighting. We need to make fights, and if we can upgrade the belts, well then, so be it. But if we can't, the fights are still happening.
A fight's a fight sometimes, doesn't it? No matter if there's a belt on the line or not. Everybody's seeing the commercial value in the fights already, for the fact that there's two domestic fighters going at it. They know it's going to be, that's what puts bums in seats pretty much. So sometimes the belt doesn't make a difference to the fan.
Well, that's it. Rather than blow a few grand on flights and accommodation and a journeyman's costs coming in, that goes into your pocket now. So it makes sense, as they say, financially, but it also progresses your career. If you lose a domestic, does it really knock you back that much? Because when people look at your record, they go, he only lost to that fella that was unbeaten, or that fella that had, was a domestic, it was for a Celtic title, it was for an Irish title. It's no real shame in that. Whereas if you were to lose or have a banana skin against a journeyman or something like that, people go, he's brutal, he lost to a journeyman. So I think it's testament to the lads, credit to them all. Tony McGlynn was a good one. Tony McGlynn is coming back. He just announced recently he's having a baby, wants to get his head down as he's back training in Crumlin. And I just said to Tony, what's the plan? He says, I don't want to fight a journeyman. He says, can I get the rematch straight away? And I was like, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, I just want the rematch. But he said, I want to just fix that. I was like, okay, let's make it happen. So I reached out to Ian, had a conversation. It wasn't hard to make that fight. So, it's the kind of first time we've actually discussed the rematch properly. And both lads willing to take it. So testament to Dave and to Tony for that one as well.
I was going to say, obviously, we were saying there, there's no loser in sort of domestic fights. Probably the perfect example of that's really Farrell. Obviously lost to Colin Murphy for the Celtic title a couple of years ago. And look what he's done since. He's had 2 fights with Gerard Hughes. He's had 2 fights with Conor Kerr. He's become Celtic, he's become Irish champion. And he's now going to defend the belt in his 6th domestic fight against Matty Borland on the Crocker Donovan 2 card. So that's testament there, sort of just away from sort of your fighters and going, well, look at someone that's lost a domestic title fight.
One of the most improved fighters in Ireland as well. Because, to be fair to Rudy, he wasn't a great fighter when he got going. Hadn't got massive experience in the sport. But look at him now, he's definitely one of the most improved fighters in this country, if not the most improved fighters in the country. And testament to him, it's come through hard graft, hard fights, tough fights. Domestics, they'll improve you, they'll make you a better fighter. There you go, he lost a fight, he came back, and look what he's done, he's been outstanding. And I'm sure when he wins this, he's going to say, look at Ian, I don't want any more domestics. Start getting me fights, bigger fights across the water. I want to take a chance. I've completed Ireland. I want to have a shot at a big international fight like the likes of Senan has done. So, yeah, credit to him. And I think all the lads on the card, like there's avenues. I don't look at just, sell out this card and we'll see what happens after. I've already earmarked potential fights. And I spoke to the lads. Like I spoke to all the lads. that I've made matches with. There's one or two. There's maybe just one. Could be one or two that I haven't actually set another plan for because they're not my fighters. But I've probably spoke to their managers. Like I speak to Mick regularly about Dean and about Kevin, and I speak to Pascal about his lads, and obviously my own lads, and Ian. I speak to Ian. So like this isn't just they'll fight these fights and the stadium will be great that night, and sure we'll see what happens after that. There's plans in place for the winners and for the losers, because the losers need to be rewarded as well. Like some of the winners will push on, and go on to bigger fights. Some of the losers then will regroup, but they'll regroup against someone else at a domestic level, maybe, or you know what I mean. So there's avenues there, and there's outcomes for everybody here. It's not just fight and then to see what happens and we'll go from there. I don't like that attitude.
Something we'd said obviously earlier, obviously in the interview at the start, was sort of people skipping the sort of domestic level and getting found out. Like this is testament to the fact, and this card alone, like this is people's continuing to step up the ladder. They get past the domestic level. They get past like a Sen Kelly, potentially like a ruin Farrell. You have to complete the domestic level before you can move on. You're building your foundation for the next level, so you're prepared. Like I'd probably say Sen Kelly's in a better position than Ben Marksby going into September 5th, because he's had his domestic fights, he's fought over his 8 and his 10 rounds, whereas Ben Marksby, I think his last 2 fights have been stoppage wins. He sort of hasn't had that level of a good domestic fight yet to know how good he is.
Yeah, exactly. And look, he could show on the night that he's above that level and he's outstanding and the whole lot. But he will be asked questions, and the questions will come not in round 1, 2, or 3. They'll come in round 5, 6, 7, and 8 when Senan is still coming forward and he's asking questions, and that again comes from the thing I said about Glenn's fight with Charlie Lopez. He learned so much from that fight. He didn't lose, but he didn't come away from that fight and go, that was a handy one. He has gone back to that gym and he is grinding because he knows the mistakes he made and it's improved him. I reckon when Glenn comes back after that fight, he is going to be twice as good as what he was. I genuinely believe he's going to be a different fighter. I've seen him. I'm watching him spar. He's sparring Daniel O'Sullivan. He's sparring Senan. He's sparring different people. I was even sparring him last week to work on things with him. He's really shown signs. He's not a complete fighter by any stretch of the imagination. He's still a novice in my eyes. But improvements-wise, he's making serious improvements. Again, it comes from a really, really tough fight.
I'm just looking here. I think Spike's last fight was in Ireland in 3 Arena, November 2014. Like that man shows no signs of slowing down, Jay. Obviously, Spike's been around a long time. I think he made his debut in 2008. It goes. I guess he's been on these big cards. He's been on the big cards all over the world. He's obviously fought Chris Eubank and things like that. But he's getting to come back home, and this is probably one of his proudest moments of the fact that probably he's coming into his twilight years. I don't know how long's left in the sport for Spike, but it'll be a very proud moment for him. I know he's been in and cornered people since in the 3 Arena and the National Stadium, but to be back fighting in the stadium again, his career's sort of coming full circle.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking this could be the end of Spike. I think this could be his farewell fight. Not 100% sure, but I think that's what the talks are. He wants to go out in Ireland, and what better place to go out in the National Stadium on probably the biggest Irish domestic card of all time, and to be front and center of that. It's testament to him and his career. He's been a legend. I remember before I was even heavily involved in boxing, I was a fan of Spike's. I remember he reached out to my amateur club back in 2013 or 14 when I was running the club, wishing all the... I might have been fighting myself and wishing everyone luck in the championships that night. I remember he put it up on Twitter or something like that, and I was baffled. I was like, Spike O'Sullivan, that they're reaching out to the club, I mean, I wasn't a boxing man at the time, really. I was only getting into it, and that's how long I would know Spike and I'd be a fan of his, and to think that he'd be on one of our shows is great. It's great for him as well. It's great for him to get the box back at home. If it is going to be his last fight, or if it's one of his last fights, it's great to he's able to do it in Dublin in front of a home crowd, because I'm sure a lot have travelled over the years to see him.
Just looking obviously at the rest of the card, you have four other fighters obviously on the card that obviously aren't signed with yourself, so you're continuing that trend of helping other managers, helping other stables. You've Glenn Lynch, Podge Collins, Daniel. I'm going to get Daniel's name right here for Lynch. Finally, but Daniel Fakoyede, and obviously another debutant on the card in Christina Desmond. But you're keeping that trend going, Jay, that the card just aren't for your fighters. They're there for all fighters. You just want to see fighters' careers develop.
100%. That's what it's all about. I've said that from day one, first press conference. I said it. I want to work with all the promoters. I want to work with all the managers, because it's not about JB. It's about Irish boxing, and it doesn't work if I just run shows. I could run shows just on my own, because there's a few of my lads that aren't on the card. You know what I mean? I could run shows on my own if I really wanted to. But no, it's not about that. It's about the best for Irish boxing and promoting Irish boxing. And I'll continue to do that. And I will continue to do that. And if other promoters and managers don't want to work with us, that's fine. They can do their thing. They're obliged. They're not obliged to do anything they don't want to do. But we will continue to open our door to any boxer, promoter, or manager in the country. And again, I believe it's working. I look at the amount of shows we've done, and the amount of other managers and promoters, fighters we've had on our bills, and I feel they all get treated the same. We treat them like our fighters. So once you're on our show, you then, in my eyes, become our fighter for the 10 weeks, 8 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, run up to the show. We'll treat you the same as our fighters. We feel when you're fighting one of our fighters in a domestic, we treat you like our fighter coming up to that fight. We don't, one-sided promo videos, or we don't not include you in a promo video. If we're doing anything, if we're doing a press conference, we'll invite you to the press conference. We don't, disengage with you or anything. We give you the same benefits as working as one of our fighters, because when we're promoting the show and you're on our show, we feel that it's our job to promote you the same way we promote all of ours.
And obviously the last but not least, obviously another UJB JB Promotions signing, Sarah Murphy. Obviously I interviewed Sarah, obviously colleagues ago, obviously won quite a lot as an amateur. Another proud moment for you in the stable, Jay. Obviously, I think this is your first female in the stable as well, and you have very high hopes for Sarah.
Yeah, again, I just feel it was time. We'd had a few reach out to us over the years, a couple of years, and we just was just focused on what we were doing. And I know the girls can be hard work at times. Not the girls personally. I just mean with getting matches made and making sure it's the right matches and just things like that. And I think with females, you have to be a little bit more cautious. Some mightn't agree with that, but I feel you should be a little bit more cautious with your matchmaking. Whereas, I match me guys tough, and I make sure they're match tough, and I make sure they're getting questions asked of them. But I think with females, you have to be a little bit easier going with them, and you have to be just a little bit more cautious. But it was never really something on the top of my list to get going and start signing a load of girls and things like that. Although we had been kind of asked about one or two on the whole lot, but this one just came about, and I just felt the time was right. I felt, again, we were going into a new area, a new dawn, as they say, with the TV deal and things like that. And Sarah had a great pedigree in the amateurs, won an awful lot of medals, and I just felt, the time was right, and it was the right kind of boxer, type of boxer that she's aggressive. She was a come forward, aggressive type of fighter, and I just went, yeah, you know what? Her dad had reached out. I spoke to her dad. I asked him up to Belfast, met them in Belfast, had a chat with them, and like I do with all my fighters, I just spelled it out for them. I told them, I'll give you everything I can. However, you need to do your job, and your job is, when you're fighting at home, you got to sell tickets. You got to cover costs. You got to make sure that you're not costing any money, and you're putting the effort in. There will be times where, you may not be able to cover the tickets for certain reasons, and it may cost us, but once you're putting your effort in, you're doing your best, that's all that matters. And that's what we're doing. And then they come back and say, look, you're very happy, you're very, very interested in signing. And we got the deal done, and they're happy to go. And I'm very happy to have Sarah on board. From what I can see so far, she's very committed, very dedicated. She's working very hard. I put her in connections with some people in regards sponsorships and things like that, and she's gone. She's had her meetings with them, and they've been happy to sponsor her and things like that. So all is going well with Sarah. And again, she's only a kid. People need to realise that. I do have high hopes, but I have high hopes for all my fighters. I don't sign fighters for no reason. I have high hopes for all of them. And I've said it from day one, it's about guiding them the right way, the right fights at the right time. And I will get it wrong at times with some of the fighters, I'm sure. But so far, so good. I don't seem to have got it wrong at all with any in regards to building them up. Yes, you might lose a title fight or whatever. That's not me getting it wrong, because you've accepted the fight. I put it to you. You've accepted it. So you felt you were good enough. Your coach felt you were good enough. And if you fall short, you fall short. It's not my fault. You know, it's not your fault, the coach's fault, you know, unless you didn't turn up on the night or something. But I feel I've done well with them in regards to building them at the early stages of their careers and getting them to them levels. With Sarah, she's only a kid. There'll be time to build and build her properly. Again, the right fights at the right time. But as you know, with female boxing, you know, it doesn't take as long to build them as it does with the male. So, yeah, I feel the next kind of 18 to 24 months we'll grow Sarah, and I would more start judging her in 18 months to 2 years to see exactly the level we feel she can get to. That's my plan. I have a 12 to 18 month plan to get her to a certain level, assess the situation, see where she's at before we make any decisions of pushing forward into other areas.
So with Cian Doyle obviously off the card now, you're down to 11. Obviously, you said there's a potential maybe of some of those on the 3 Arena card, depending obviously how things go, that they could be on that. Is there any other fights or any other news coming on October 10th?
Yes, Bayo Alabi will be announced. He'll be announced straight after this meeting. As we discussed Bayo earlier, he's coming off a great win. He's a great start to his career, really has. That's he debuted on our first stadium show. He's going into his 4th fight now in 4 months. Well, it'll be 6 months by the time the fight comes out. And he's a good kid. He's really progressing. He's listening. Day one, we were worried about his work ethic. I believe his work ethic now is where it needs to be. His performance in his last fight was excellent. He has a nice following behind him. Need to keep growing that following. And he will most likely step up to 6 rounds on the October 10th card.
I think that's what he was sort of looking for, but at the same time, you know, I think the fighters respect you hate the fact that whenever, you know, I guess when you've so many title fights and stuff on the card, sometimes it might be hard to do 6 and there might have to be another 4, but I think he's happy either way, if it was 4, if it was 6. But I think he'd said that he's a slow starter, so, you know, 6 rounds will suit him better.
We had 84 rounds scheduled for April. And at the minute, I'm nearly sure with Bayo on the card, we are at 80 rounds. So I have access. I have got the other 4, and I have another few fighters that I've kind of given them a spot, and just waiting just to make sure they're happy enough to go with it. As you know, on the last card, there wasn't a massive amount of stoppages, and we also had amateurs on the card. We're not having amateurs on this card, so we're taking the amateurs' time off the card, and at the minute we're 4 rounds short of what we were the last time. So it's all looking okay at the minute numbers wise. We potentially will add another to the card. I actually think we will add another to the card. I believe we're going to add Kelsey Leonard to the card as well.
I know she's
very fond of Kelsey.
Of potential.
Kelsey's a great card. She's a great kid. She boxed on our shows as an amateur. Really nice kid. Very polite. And working with Noel and the lads, there's never been an issue. So I do believe we'll add Kelsey to the card within the next 24 hours.
Fantastic. You're certainly going all out for Triller on their debut. Like, they've been spoiled for choice, Jay. Like, you know, I guess the thing is like you're setting a standard now. It's nearly going to get to this stage where it could be impossible to beat the standard, because, you know, you're having 5 really 50-50 domestic fights, and where do you go? Like, I guess the ultimate aim is to obviously do a card full of title fights, but like you can only get to a certain level in terms of where you can get you in a card in a stadium before you then have to maybe look at the likes of the Three Arena and things like that. But that's maybe a step too far at this stage.
Yeah, well, way off that. Yeah, I still you see domestic fights and you think everyone thinks, "Geez, that'll sell thousands of tickets." I'm actually I've done the tickets. I've do them at night. I've been sitting counting the tickets, and last night I was counting them, and still not at sellout with the quantities requested. And you think, Jesus, a big card, a lot of domestics. The people in the people in Ireland in the south don't seem to have the big fan bases yet. But I've been thinking about this in the last few weeks as well, because a lot of people have been saying, how come they don't have the fan bases like the UK? There hasn't been that like this in Ireland in a long time. In regards, and don't get me wrong, there has been people running shows in the south, but they haven't been coming thick and fast the way they are, and at a level of like what April's was. And I please God, this will be the same, where you have the full production, you have the good entertainment, the music, the real fights. So there hasn't been a massive fan base built in Ireland. Like you look at an Eddie Hearn show, in theory, and you don't ever have 5 real 50-50s on an Eddie Hearn show. You might have 3 or 4, but they always sell it out because the lads have built and they're building and they're building. But we have, Ireland has as good a boxers as the UK, always have in the amateurs. And it's just the amateurs don't seem to get the platform to turn over to. So we haven't built what they have in the UK. We haven't built that boxing community that, like, even, and I know we're a lot smaller, but even down to the likes of yourselves, you guys, the media, the boxing media in Ireland. If you look at your fan base, i.e. your numbers, and you look at the likes of Irish boxing's numbers, and then if you compare that to the likes of some of the bigger ones in the UK, their numbers are outdoing our numbers massively. And that's just down to the boxing community in the UK is bigger because it's been going on longer. You have big shows all the time. You have a busy small hall show. Over here we don't. So I just feel what we're doing is helping towards building to that. And again, Rome wasn't built in a day. But if you rewind back to when we started, where boxing really was, like it was really, really flat. There was nothing really happening. It's growing now. It is definitely growing. And there's no question Irish boxing is in a far better place now than where it was this time 2 years ago when we announced that we were going to do our first show. Because it was dead at the time. It was flat. There was absolutely nothing happening. It was hard to get a sponsor. It was hard to get a venue. Now we have people reaching out to us, asking about sponsorship, asking us, what's the cost for sponsorships. We've got a broadcast deal on board, and reach out to Robert Hines from the Mirror. He's been in touch with us there. He wants to do big spreads in the Mirror about us. And Kevin Byrne reaches out. We do spreads in the Sun. We've had the Gazette on board doing things for us. Talk Sport Ireland have been on. Luke Delaney, I have to go in and have a chat with them. I had Roddy Collins on to do news talk. This is 2 years ago. None of these had any interest in boxing. Now, I'm not saying I've brought it to them, but the platform we're given and the amount of shows we're doing and continuously doing, and the amount of pro fighters, you count the pro fighters that have turned over since we got going 2 years ago. I'd say the pro fighter count has doubled in Ireland. Now, not all of them coming to us, but I just mean because of activity, because these fighters are now seeing boxing is alive in Ireland. There's places I can box. There's loads of shows. Everything, it's happening. It's busy, and then now you're going to start seeing it a lot more in the national newspapers. You had TG4 doing Mark's show 2 weeks ago. It's all starting to come. So look at where we've come in 2 years as a community, and where will we be in 2 years' time? Because if Senan can beat Marksby, we've now got another guy on international level that's competing well. If Glenn can beat Charlie Lopez, he's boxed on a platform like the Three Arena TG4. He's probably gone up to Europe or international level as well. Mick's regrowth. Mick's going to beat Jack Bateson and please God come back, and whether it be Belfast or Dublin, hopefully another world title swing. And all these lads are going to get an undercard, looking at that, chances to be on undercards and things like that. You had Donovan and Crocker fighting for a world title. 2 years ago, where was boxing in Ireland? Genuinely.
Yeah.
We had Katie Taylor. That's all we had. We didn't only have that. We have a lot of other boxers, i.e. Gary Cully and Keevan and Thomas Carty and that. But I'm on about the big platforms. What was really happening in Ireland? There wasn't a massive amount happening.
We were just past 2 years since Katie was beat by Chantel Carmen, and then within a week of that, Mick was beat by Lopez. So at this stage, 2 years ago, people were going, "Where's the next world champion going to come from? Where Irish boxing's doom and gloom? Where's it started going?" You now look at it. We've had a world champion obviously since Ananto Kakachi. Crocker Donovan's going to become a world champion. There's a potential of Connor Wallace becoming a world champion and stuff as well. So, like, from people going, that's it, Irish boxing screwed for the next 5 or 10 years. Within 2 years, it's back to where it was and potentially going to even rise. Probably,
I think it's going to be bigger.
Come back 10 years, they were when Frampton, Burnett were becoming world champions, Andy Lee becoming world champions. We're coming back to another healthy state.
But it's not even about just becoming world champions. It's to become the show activity, and I'd put my hand out and say here to be slapped to say that within the next 2 years, I believe we could have RTE back showing boxing, and that are Virgin Media. I think that would be absolutely huge to get back to that level. Because again, I just said if the two lads were to come through that, but there's another crop coming up underneath them. The likes of Paul Loonam, the likes of these lads. The Daniel O'Sullivans, the Dean Walshes, all these lads that are fighting these domestics. If they get another win or two, they're all going to be around the 10, 11, 0 mark. They're all ready then for bigger fights, and I don't think we're that far away. I would like to think within the next 2 years, if things keep going the way they're going, Irish boxing could be in the best position it's ever been in. And it's not always just about the world title. The world titles are obviously the top end, the top of the spot. But if you think about it, if you were able to put on cards regularly or get to the Tree Arena where you have 2 or 3 shows in the Tree Arena and it's full of all Irish talent, and we're bringing in British fighters and we're bringing in European fighters and things like that, rather than the Irish lads always having to go,
Definitely, I fully agree with that, and I guess a good thing, Jay, that I'm seeing quite a lot as well is the praise you're getting. Obviously, I know you've seen comments on X yesterday from people where they've been to a few of your shows and they're really impressed. Like, more and more of these are happening. People's comments, I guess, are a big thing on they come home from a show and somebody goes, "Oh, where were we at the weekend? I was in Dublin at the stadium and I was watching the boxing." They then tell a few friends and then they come along the next time, and that's an important part as well as the media, the fighters. It's the fans that come to these shows that's come back and telling other people, have you been to one of these JB promotion shows, or have you been to one of these shows? Because it's through that word of mouth that people will only go to a show because they're skeptical or they don't know what they expect of shows.
But that's what I said earlier on, and I said it on my first press conference in the warehouse when we had our first ever press conference. I said the fighter's job is to sell the tickets. My job is to make sure when the people buy the tickets that they want to come back. Because I've been to shows, I've bought tickets to support people before I gone to a show, and fuck, that was brutal. It was cold, it was dingy, there was no entertainment, and the fights weren't great. Wouldn't be too pushed to go going back to that, you know what I mean? But I told the fighters from day one, your job is to sell their tickets, and my job is to, when you sell a ticket, that the people want to come back, and it makes it easier for you the next time. And yeah, it's nice to look at comments and hear that. And I have people that text me privately to buy tickets. They don't care who's on the card. When's your next show? And I tell them, and they say, I want to get 2 ringsides, I want to get 4 tickets, or me and the lads are going to go, etc., etc. So this was my plan from day one, to try build a promotional outfit that it's not just the fighters that the fans are supporting, it's the show. So they don't really care who's on it. They know that's a good night out at the boxing. Very much like the way Belfast is. When the boxing's on, everyone just goes to the boxing. It's just the boxing. It doesn't matter who's fighting. It's not I'm going to the Paul Ryan and Edward Donovan fight. It's going to the boxing in Dublin, the JB show. And you're trying to build a fan base that when I announce a show, they know, Jay always puts on a good show, so that'll be a great night. It doesn't matter who's on the card. Let's get our tickets. That's what I was aiming for. And I believe we're starting to grow into that, because we do sell a number of tickets ourselves without the fighters. It's not just only the fighters. Don't get me wrong, without the fighters' ticket sales, you wouldn't have shows because you need fighters for cards. But we do actually sell a lot of tickets ourselves without the fighters, or we don't sell them for specific fighters. We actually sell for the card.
Yep, very much. And obviously it's good when you have that respect, because if a fighter pulls off a card, then you're having to worry going, Craig, getting down 100 tickets here. If people's buying them because they have an interest in JB promotions rather because they know the good fights and stuff's going to be there. So, hopefully that continues to grow as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That, as I said, it's every business, any business in the world can't be reliant on a single source, and if it is, you gotta be careful because your business is at jeopardy at all times, and that's the same with all businesses. So our job again is to build our business in the right way that nobody we don't depend on any individual. So don't get me wrong, every individual collectively is important, because again, if you don't have all the fighters, well, then you don't have an event, you don't have a show. So individuals are very important, but not one sole individual. It's not as if we're just running a show just for one fighter because he does 1,500 tickets, and if we lose him, we're goosed. That's not sustainable.
Definitely. Well, look, we've come to the end of the interview. I think that's about an hour we've probably done today, probably more than we both anticipated it was going to be. But great to get a good catch up, obviously, after everything that's been going on recently, obviously with boxing and a busy time period. We'll no doubt see you at the start of September for obviously the ConlanBateson card in the 3 Arena prior to your own show in October. But for anybody, obviously, it's watching this and still to get their tickets, get them quick with all these domestic fights and the card that's being built. They're not going to last the fight week in October. But Jay, thanks as always for your time, and I'll see you in Dublin in a few weeks' time.
You will indeed. Thanks very much, Dave. Appreciate all your work as usual.
Cheers, Jay. Speak to you soon.
Talk soon, Pop.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye.